What is the number one thing that police psychologists look for during your hiring process? Let's discuss. Hey, before we get started, I have gifts in the description for you. One is the Getting Started workshop. It's going to walk you through every phase of the hiring process, plus there's some hidden bonuses in there I know you're going to love. Next is a coaching call with me or any member of my team. Jump on it. We'd be glad to help you as much as possible. All that is down in the description. Now, the number one thing I would say law enforcement look for police psychologists look for when interviewing or reviewing a police candidate. And I said one, but it's really two. So they just go hand in hand. I'm just going to tell you. First one is maturity, right? Ultimately looking for maturity. That's why they're really rough on the younger candidates, 21 to 25. And then the next one is humility, right? So maturity and humility hand in hand. Ultimately, they're looking for positive professional characteristics. So we have maturity and we have humility. Let's break those two down. Maturity looks like this. You could be 22 years old and show substantial maturity, right? What does that look like? Hey, I graduated at 18 with good grades from high school. I attended a part-time college for 2 years, or I attended college full-time or even part-time for 2 to 4 years, and I acquired my associate's degree. And all throughout that time, I worked in as an Uber driver or in security or in a warehouse or whatever for 3 years or 2 years with no reprimands and promotions and things like that. That shows maturity. Absolutely, number one thing that shows maturity, hands down. Consistency with employment and positive reflection on the limited life aspects you've had, which is your education and any experience you've had, whether that's volunteer work or whatever. But really, if you have positive work history and positive educational history, and it doesn't even have to be college. You could get out of high school at 18 and then go into work for 4 years and stay with the same employer, or maybe work for one employer for 2 years and then work for another employer for 2 years and articulate, yeah, I was working here, but they were shutting down or relocating, or I was working here and an offer got made for me to go over here to make substantially more income. So I decided to take that while I was waiting for my availability to pursue law enforcement, to meet the age requirement to pursue law enforcement. That's perfectly reasonable. Perfectly. All in the meantime, I was trying to maintain my physical and mental health throughout the entire time so that I could be the best possible. I could be my best self for the position to best serve the community. I love that answer. It's great. Psychologists would most likely accept something like that, especially if delivered with a little bit of confidence, not necessarily false confidence or cockiness, ego, but a little bit of charisma, a little bit of confidence of, hey, this is me, this is why I've done this, this is how it's all worked out. Next would be your humility, right? So going into something and going in and feeling, hey, I've got this in the bag, this is just a formality, I'm the best candidate. Sometimes you'll get checked. Often you'll get checked on that one. I know a lot of candidates that have been checked on that one. A lot of candidates. And they come to me and say, man, I have this stellar background. Cool. But how did you compose yourself? Right? Yeah, man, I came across super professional. I used manners, sir, ma'am, everything like that. Okay, but then when they were asking you to explain or talk about yourself, was it all me, I, and you gave no credit or credence to other people that may have helped you throughout your career or your life, or the fact that other people or other life events may have shaped you, and it's not just your own doing by your own hand, right? Which is fine if you're a person that says, hey, I've done everything in my life by myself, and I take pride in that. Well, that's great. I mean, I can relate in some aspects, but you know what I can also say? I've learned just as much of what not to do from people as what to do from people. and they are just as much mentors of mine as the people that, even though I've never expressed them to their face as mentors, because I've learned what, negatives not to do, still could be considered mentors depending on how you look at it. And that's humility, learning, hey, this person that was in my life was, I I learned a lot of what not to do in life because that just did not work out for that individual, right? It it's better to learn from other people's mistakes than have to go make the mistakes yourself, especially after someone has already told you, hey, there's a potential for you to make this mistake. I know because I've done it, right? A lot of people take that as an attack, and it's not. It's someone trying to impart wisdom or impart some knowledge that may be beneficial to you. And here's the best part is if you take it as such and say, hey, I appreciate that. I'll take that under consideration, and then you consider it and determine outweigh the pros and cons and say, hey, I've considered what this individual told me. I think there's some differences between them and I believe I can avoid those mistakes if I implement these controls. Then that's great. Then you did learn something still, and you can give person credit for that. And you can say that during the psych exam. So what would that look like? Is, oh, hey, tell me about someone who's made a significant impact on your life. And you say, really no one. Okay. That's not going to fly, right? It comes across as immature and kind of egotistical, right? Like, it's all me all the time. Or they might even say, oh, well, why do you feel that there's no one in your life that supports you? They could take that and twist it and manipulate it any which way they want. But where I would go with this is just say, I've learned a lot from so many different people. And, just looking at if one person teaches me one thing, even though they're not a designated mentor that I go to and rely on all the time, I guess I can look at them as a mentor. I've learned of what not to do from a family member that maybe consumes too much alcohol, and I know that I don't want to consume alcohol. Or I've learned what not to do from a friend that I've had long ago back in high school, and he just kind of, after high school we lost contact, but he just kind of kept getting in trouble, and I saw it through, or I heard about it through the grapevine, and I learned hey, I saw the way that he or she behaved when we were friends, and I was always concerned that it would lead to that, and my concerns have kind of become truth. So I've learned, hey, maybe those aren't the best steps. Now they may dig, right? They explain something. Oh, well, I had friends in high school that maybe consumed marijuana, right? Now why I never did, it was maybe something along the lines of I would always see them consume marijuana, and I'd see them kind of not have any ambition, and I knew I just didn't want to. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do more. I wanted to make more of an impact on the world, on my community. So, watching them, I learned to kind of stay away from that. Now we've lost contact over the years, and through the grapevine, I've heard that they're not doing well, or they're currently still working at the pizzeria that they worked at 16, which nothing wrong with that, but I want to strive for a more impactful profession, which is why I'm choosing law enforcement. That's eloquently put, if I do say so myself, pat myself on the back here. All joking aside, that would come across really well, if you said that to me. And that was something that I just came up with right there on the spot. That whole scenario, I just kind of came up with that. But that's what I'm getting at, right? That's that humility where you say, hey, I give him credit, or I give that person credit because watching them was impactful to me. I learned so much from them about having desires and about having goals. So giving them credit for it, in some aspects, in a different definition, they would be considered a mentor of mine because they shaped my life for a positive, more positive outcome. That is beautiful. And you can say that as a 22 or 21 or a 45-year-old or a 55-year-old. You can still say things like that about people. If I ask you who's the most impactful person in your life, and you say something like that, that's in depth, right? You say, hey, ironically, it's someone who's taught me what not to do rather than what to do. And super mature, and a lot of humility, and saying, like, while me and them went separate ways, I respect what I learned from this individual? And that's the humility that you want to go for. So if you're really trying to shoot for that essence of or that balance of maturity and humility, that's kind of where you get it. If you implement humility, then you automatically start leaning towards the side of maturity. Now, I'm not telling you to put yourself down, right? If I'm asked to say, hey, what do you account for your successes in life? And you say, while I can't take credit for all my successes, I do have to give that to my mentors. The one thing that I do take credit for is I was smart enough to listen to a majority of them and heed from their warnings and their advice to better set myself up or to improve myself in whatever situation they were trying to guide me in, rather than trying to be a stubborn individual and think that I knew everything and could do everything myself. I greatly, even if I haven't told them recently or ever, I greatly appreciate all the mentors in my life, because my talent was listening to them, but their ability to deliver it was what really made the successes in my life possible. And that's an answer that I typically give, right? So play with this, right? Mull it over. Try to be charismatic, right? Have a little bit of charisma. Have some practical confidence, but don't have ego. Don't have false confidence. I did another video on false confidence. If you want to watch that, go on to our page and watch that. But humility is the start to maturity, and then maturity is what sells you in the psychological assessment. Those number one tip is to be the humble professional. That's really what the tip is. But you do that by having humility and maturity, and you start showing maturity with humility. And most people ultimately recognize that, or at least can respect it. Even if you come in and say the psychologist has a bias against younger applicants, if you can show that and you can kind of change their perspective, they might have failed 3 or 4 other applicants that day that were around the same age as you. But you go in and you throw off that compass of theirs, or you throw a wrench in their gears to the minute that they have to pause and remember you and say, you know what, out of everything, at least I feel that this individual has the potential to go. And it's the same with older candidates. Don't think I'm just picking on younger candidates too. I see a lot of older candidates not get through the psychological assessment because they go in there thinking, I've done all this in my life, I have all this experience, all this knowledge to give to the profession to make a positive impact on the profession, but it's all I, me, and not what you can do for others, right? It's where you come in and you say, hey, I think what I'm looking for now in this career transition is I'm going from what I've done in the past to this, and the reason is because I want to do something more impactful for my community, for other people. Yes, there's a selfish side where I truly believe this is a honorable profession and a profession that can provide properly for my family, but the selfless part of me is the fact that I just want to really go out there and make an impactful mission or an impactful state to the community or to one person. Just making sure that I can make one person's life better. That comes back to me as, hey, I can be happy with what I've done as a profession, knowing that I've done that. I've given my all to make a positive impact on whatever scale that I can make, whether that's my local community, whether that's my county, whether that's my state. And that's what I'm going for. So that's the way I would approach this, and specifically for the older members, that's how I would go about something like that. Too many times, older members are the ones I see with the false confidence, and younger members are the ones that go in there and do not demonstrate proper maturity. So those are usually what I typically see. Not all the time, but typically. I hope this helps. Remember, those gifts are in the description for you. The Getting Started workshop. Walk you through every phase of the hiring process, plus those hidden bonuses in there. I know you're going to love them. In addition to a coaching call, right, with myself or any member of my team, our gifts to you. Please use them. That's what they're there for. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.